minimizing charisma, maximizing intelligence, shooting someone in the crotch with a cannonball, thrust, propulsion. It's science-y.
Why you always gotta be blowing my spot up like that? There are my runes. There they are. I'm not mad. Science needs art and art needs science. They both need each other to function properly.
There are ways to figure out what the paper is really saying.
And then I'm ready to get on Twitter and yell at people about doing their own research on...
Oh, hold on there, sports fan.
Heil Hill, everybody! He's the next generation of science communicator. I'm going to be too old at a certain point to do those terrible things to my body, and it'll be up to you.
He's got like a lion.
Adam. My friend. No one cares if I'm the next generation if no one believes me about aliens. Chat, you join me on a mission already in progress. I've been neglecting office hours for the last 2 months or so because I've been off in the void searching for good evidence for aliens. Haven't actually found any yet. Chat, welcome to Office Hours. Today we'll be talking about 2 things. If we can get to the second thing, we'll see, because I imagine chat is going to be pretty spicy today. Today we'll be talking about the new whistleblower evidence about aliens, alien cover-ups and conspiracies. Because so many of you asked me about it, I'm using it as an excuse to teach you some statistics today. But Karl, I hate math. Shh, sit down. And then if we get to it, we'll be talking about orcas and why they're sinking ships and the difference between learned behavior, innate behavior, evolved behavior, all that cool stuff. But I know what you're saying. Where are we going to talk about it, Kyle? Well, first of all, cool voice. Keep it up. Second of all, at the facility, of course. Chat. Always a hot landing. I know it's been a long time. I see a lot of newbies in the chat. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone being here. Now, right off the bat, we do have Tactical Bucket in chat ready to nuke anyone from orbit who gets a little rowdy. No matter what you think about what I'm going to say about aliens and conspiracies and all that stuff, if you keep it civil and you keep it locked in and tight with that Riz... No, I don't know what it means. Then everyone should be cool and we can answer any questions that anyone has. Especially our channel members chat pinned at the top of this chat window is a reminder that memberships are now active on the main channel if you don't want to use Patreon. I have Patrick Herrera, who just joined and gifted 5 subs. Chris Riley, who's a member of 2 different channels. What a boss. Bullwick with the 5. But Kyle, those are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics. Nice reference to a statistics book. Chat, if this is your first time, welcome to the facility. And Office Hours, the live component of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his Aperture Science wing and allows you, all members of the public, all my staff, as you can see them flooding in, to explore and explain the week's news in science. Tracy Dale with the $4.99, who wants the orcas to sink the ships. Sink the rich, chat. So today we'll be going over those 2 topics while taking your comments and questions. Chat, this is the only place on the internet that you can get this kind of edutainment streamed live. And you know why? Because we're supported by people like Z in the chat, longtime facility member with the €500 donation. Z, if you don't know, is an absolute psychopath. Z wakes up, like the Fonz, goes into his garage and then just hits his Ducati Superbike and it turns on. I don't know how. He gets on it, leather jacket, no pants, dingle dangle, just out. Then full speed down his own highway that he had specially constructed, much like the Matrix Reloaded, and then he throws money at things. I happen to be one of those things. Z, happy to have you back here. Finally free and awake to make a stream. Quick question. Based on how rapidly tech and AI are advancing, do you think the estimation that the singularity will be reached on 2050 is accurate, says Z? The singularity and the advancement or recent advancements in AI are two different things, in my opinion. What you're saying right now is advancements in large language models like ChatGPT. Our next episode of the facility will be a 20 to 30 minute deep down explainer of how ChatGPT works from the bottom up, top T to B, top to butt. There'll be a full explainer to help you understand exactly what ChatGPT is doing and what it means and what it doesn't mean for artificial general intelligence, which is the progression from narrow intelligence to general intelligence to super intelligence and then singularity time. So by 2050, I'm not sure, even though large language models are progressing very, very quickly. Like I said, chat, you see our generous members of the facility keeping this place alive. Our mission is to explore and explain everything underneath the stars and beyond, much like today, where we're explaining beyond the stars. Yeah, I was kind of hoping you'd make a "hey, these things don't think, this is just how token prediction works" kind of video at some point. This is X41. That's kind of exactly what we're going to be doing. Chat. Do large language models even correlate to general intelligence at all? No, not yet, in my opinion. Vanguard, greetings from the UK. A lot of newbies in the chat. If you're not used to what's going on, don't worry. I am here. I'm especially as chat gets a little bit spicier. I'm Kyle. I'm an award-winning science educator. And it is my job to sift through the science and present it to you in a way that is educational and entertaining. That's what we're doing today. Kyle, is that alien DNA in your facility? Are you holding out on us? Says Dark Jester with the 5. Don't, just because that DNA is large doesn't mean. Archer with the 10. What do you think of author and futurist John Michael Gaugier's coverage and interviews on this topic? Well, here we go. Chat. Hopefully the music's not too distracting. But I wanted to keep it vibing in here a little bit. Alicia, thanks for the 5. Is that a smudge on the lens? No. X41 with the 10. Thank you. Chat, we got to get to it. Chat, we got to get to it. Chat. So, much like, well, you've been hearing, much like large language models and ChatGPT, you've been hearing a lot about UFOs in the news in the last couple of months. Matthew Friel joining the facility, thank you. I might not read all of your comments and questions for the next couple minutes. Let's lay this out, okay? So in the last few months, UFOs have been in the news a lot, and it has to do with people coming forward saying that they have evidence from reliable sources, whether that's in the government, in the military, etc., etc. Most recently, a whistleblower has come forward, a former government official who was part of the program to look into UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomena. And that has been given a lot of weight by media, by places that are obsessed with UFOs on the internet, and a lot of you have asked me to comment on it. So, as we will get to, I'm going to use this as an excuse to teach you Bayesian inference and statistics as a fundamental component of how science works. But before we get to that, everything is an excuse to teach you, chat. Even when we play Diablo 4 on hardcore. That is not what I wanted. Okay, so. Great, I get to show you ads while we do this. So, as many articles say, last week, people were captivated by the account of David Grush, former Pentagon official who claims the United States has been hiding evidence of alien technology, even the bodies of crashed alien pilots. And in this 40-minute segment, he had some pretty crazy claims. And I say crazy because they're outlandish, not that I think that he is crazy. Stephen Rios, happy to have you here. The UFO could be from another dimension, Grush says. I don't want to say where they're from. I don't think we have all the data. But he proposed they could be the Pentagon, the vehicles the Pentagon is hiding, an assumption, could come from a different physical dimension as described in quantum mechanics, saying we know there are extra dimensions due to high energy particle collisions, and there's a theoretical framework to explain that. Right away, those things aren't true. Extra dimensions are an idea. They are not proven. They are not proven by quantum mechanics. It is more the realm of string theory, which again is all mathematics, not proven. And if there were extra dimensions, they would have to be incredibly, incredibly small. Why? I say small in that they wouldn't fit a spacecraft. Why do I say that? Well, I say that because you know the 3 spatial dimensions, right? Up, down, left, right, forward, back, X, Y, Z. And then there's a time dimension, and you can graph the entire time evolution of the universe if you want to. But for there to be a, let's just say fifth dimension, or a 4th spatial dimension, it would have to be at a right angle to every other dimension. Okay? So Z, up and down, at a right angle to Z, up and down, is left and right. And then at a right angle to both of those is front and back. That's how we get our 3 dimensions of space. You physically cannot, in this universe as we know it so far, create another large spatial dimension that is at a right angle to all other spatial dimensions. Now, there are ideas about extra dimensions. Like I said, they are mathematical in nature right now, not proven, but they would have to be extremely tiny, something that is not observable at this point. So right away, I'm skeptical because it shows a misunderstanding of the thing that this man is claiming. I mean, there's other massive things that he's claiming here, that the Vatican at the end of World War II was part of a cover-up. There might be massive I've had a lot of caffeine, Chet. Football field-sized craft that a private contractor is currently storing a UFO. So not only is this a government conspiracy that's been going on for decades, it also involves receipts with like dudes who own a warehouse somewhere and have never said anything or done anything about it. UFOs have been aggressive at times. People have been killed to protect the secret. Seems kind of coincidental that anyone who could actually tell us anything is dead, but, you know, okay. Tyler Kravaskis, happy to see you again. Can you explain why a 4th spatial dimension would have to be at right angles to the 3rd dimension? Says CC Anarchy. Well, just imagine it. How are the 3 spatial dimensions lined out right now? So, with X, Y, and Z, those being at right angles to each other explain the entirety of 3-dimensional space. There is no additional coordinate that you need to specify where an object is. To have another dimension would mean that you can't explain you can't fully explain the position of an object in our space. Right? We don't have that. You don't see that. Now, if you want to specify the exact location of an object in our 4-dimensional space, you need a time coordinate, right? You need X, Y, Z, and in time. Because at time 0 might be in a different place than at time 1. See what I'm saying? Okay. So, you have these explosive claims about unexplained aerial phenomena, or UFO. What's next? Well, this is the man, Grush, former official. And what I'm getting at, or what I'm about to get at, is at the heart of science. And at the heart of science is we have a previous belief or theory or law or corollary or whatever. The heart of science is based on new evidence, how do I update my belief? Right? Does my belief become more likely or less likely based on the evidence that I see? Now, the heart of science that I'm calling here goes back to Bayes' rule. Mathematician, a couple hundred years ago, and clergyman, as a lot of them were, came up with Bayes' rule and Bayesian inference. And basically, it is saying this mathematically. How should I change my probability distribution of my belief based on new evidence? Should it become more likely, less likely, that sort of thing. So how to put this in statistical terms is, what is my belief? How strong is the new evidence? And at the other side of the equation there, how do I update my belief? That is the heart of evidence. And we're going to go through, of science, and we're going to go through an example and bring it back to aliens. Okay? This is how skepticism works. This is how most neurologists actually think your brain constructs the world around you as well. But we're going to go through an example so that you have a skeptical armamentarium through which you can evaluate claims. Does dimensions work the same way as fabric of space-time? What is space-time? You're describing it, right? So, how do we do science? Good way is Bayesian reasoning, right? That's what I'm saying. We have found out that a good way to find out things about the world is to have a belief and then update it based on the evidence that we get and how strong it is, okay? So I might not read chat for a second because this gets a little complicated, but we'll go through the example, okay? So, let's say that you have an easy hypothesis unrelated to anything spicy, all right? You have an hypothesis that I live on your street, that I live right next to you, okay? What is the prior probability that I live next to you? Probably pretty low, right? I'm just one man, and I can't be everywhere all at once until I perfect cloning. So the prior probability that I live next to you is probably pretty low, right? Okay, so now you observe some evidence. What evidence do you observe? Let's say you see a blonde-haired person, like this, from behind. You're walking down the street, sipping on gin and juice, and you see a person with my length blonde hair. What is the probability that that evidence would be there given that your hypothesis is true? Well, if your hypothesis is true, then it's very likely. It's pretty likely you'd see a blonde-haired person, right? Right? But here's where the prior evidence comes in. What is the probability that you'd see a blonde-haired person that's not me? Right? In the world, what is the probability that this evidence, you see a blonde-haired person? That's your evidence. You see a blonde-haired person, you think it might be me. What's the probability you'll see a blonde-haired person? Pretty high, right? It's one of the three. It's a common hair color. Okay. So now our denominator is pretty big, right? The probability is high. Whatever you want to give it to. And your evidence for your hypothesis, oh, that might be Kyle, could also be pretty high. But I'd say it's probably lower than just having a blonde person on your street. Okay? So smaller number divided by large number, or large probability, gives you a fraction. You multiply that smaller than one fraction by your hypothesis, and you revise your evidence at the far end there. and you find out that you're multiplying a probability by less than 1, it gets less likely, right? You have a hypothesis that you just saw me on the street. Given that you only saw a blonde-haired person from behind, does that give you a reason to think more so that I live on your street? Probably not, right? Now, let's contrast that, as we're about to do with aliens. Let's contrast that with the other side of this coin. You have a hypothesis that I live on your street. The evidence that I live on your street is that you see a blonde-haired person with a beard and this tattoo on their left arm. Now, what is the probability you'd see that if Kyle lived on your street like you think? 100%? Right? Or very large? Huge probability? 99%? What is the probability that you'd see a long-haired person with a beard and this tattoo on their left arm and it's not me? Close to 0? Right? So now, instead of having a larger denominator and a small numerator, which is weak evidence, you now have very strong evidence, like 100 divided by like 1 or whatever in terms of probability. You multiply this by your hypothesis, like, I think Kyle lives on my street, and it's a low probability. But then you see someone who looks exactly like me, who has the same tattoo as me on your street. I have to update my hypothesis. My hypothesis now gets increased. The likelihood that my hypothesis is correct goes up based on the evidence that I saw, right? Okay. Talk about aliens, the smelly videos. We're getting to it. You need to learn first. Now let's do the same two things with the testimony of this man, right? And I'm not, we can get into the specifics, but just from Bayesian inference, this is what we're learning, chat. Just from Bayesian inference, that's what we're learning. How would you take this man's claims? Okay. So let's work in reverse. I have a hypothesis, me, that aliens have never visited Earth. That's my hypothesis. Or let's say aliens have visited Earth. I put the probability extremely low. Okay. But now some evidence is presented to me. The evidence being an alien just gave a press conference. Okay. Like we saw one land and it gave a press conference. Okay. If aliens have visited Earth, what is the probability that the evidence I'm seeing confirms or denies my hypothesis? Right? If my hypothesis is true, should I see this evidence that aliens have visited Earth? Oh, 100%. If aliens have visited Earth, which I consider a low likelihood, would I see an alien giving a press conference? Yes. That would be 100%. That would be strong ass evidence, right? Right? Now, how likely is just seeing an alien give a press conference if they never visited? 0.001% or whatever. So this is like seeing the blonde-haired man with the beard and the tattoo. This is very strong evidence. So in the face of very strong evidence, I would have to take my low probability hypothesis that aliens have visited and then update it. I would need to make it more likely given the evidence. Okay? But now, so that's best case scenario for my hypothesis, right? Now let's move on to Grush. Kyle, have you considered making YouTube shorts? It works well for us at Kurzgesagt and you'd be good at it. Malik, I'm actually, or Matterbeam, OG, I'm actually going to start that this month or next month. Anyway. How exactly does this work? Says Tech Priests Raisin. We're working. Okay, we're working through it. So, as you can see, this in Bayesian reasoning, all we're doing is taking our previous beliefs and seeing how new evidence changes that belief. Should it be more likely or less likely that our belief is true? Okay. 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 So, in the best case scenario for the hypothesis that aliens are here, direct confirmation. An alien comes down, fist bumps you, incontrovertible. It's not a guy in a suit. I have to update my hypothesis. Oh, I guess I was wrong. Change the probability, maximize it. Aliens have visited. Bam. What about a hypothesis, is David Schultz. Nice. So now let's move on to Grush. This man. This guy. Okay. He has stated explicitly in multiple places now that all of these claims, UFOs from another dimension, Vatican cover-up, private contractors, government killing people, he said he did not provide any evidence beyond his word and stressed that he has not personally seen any of the evidence that he is talking about. He has been told it by other people in his program. It is his word, and he hasn't personally even seen his evidence. Okay. So, my hypothesis going into this is aliens are here, and there's a government conspiracy. I put that probability as extremely low. How should this man's testimony change my hypothesis? The evidence is a man is coming forward from a government organization saying there's a massive cover-up that nobody knows about. How likely is that if aliens have visited? Could be kind of likely, right? Maybe some guy slips through the cracks, becomes a whistleblower. Could be kind of likely, right? I wouldn't say it's zero. However, this is where the important term comes in. In all of these cases, what is the probability that a guy would come forward with just his word and say something about aliens? Given that this whistleblower stuff and these people who come out of the woodwork and from government and from military who only have their word, how likely is it that this happens without aliens visiting? No aliens visit, but this still happens. How likely is that? Pretty likely, right? It happens all the time. We have seen whistleblower after statement, and nothing seems to come of it, right? Even when videos are released, etc., etc. So I would say, since this happens all the time, it is probably a higher probability than a vast government conspiracy and aliens have visited. Small numerator, big denominator makes a small number, less than 1, or maybe even equal to 1. Let's say that both are. It's very likely that a guy would come forward, and it's very likely that someone would come forward even if nothing happened. This is 1 or less than 1, which means, how do I change my hypothesis? It either stays the same, 1, or gets less likely, less than 1. In my opinion, based on Bayesian reasoning alone, and prior probabilities, as we call them, we know that people come forward all the time and nothing happens. This guy is coming forward. Should this change our belief that aliens have visited? Is it strong evidence to increase the probability? In my opinion, this factor is 1 or less than 1, which doesn't change my low probability hypothesis. This does not seem like evidence enough to change my belief probability. It is evident that you are using big words to sound smart, says Sonkin. What, like evidence? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Sonkin, if evidence is a big word for you, I get it. Now again, Sonkin, I want to contrast this with the opposite. What could this be? I still think it's low probability, but then, this guy shows up to a news interview with piece of an alien craft that's made out of a completely material not known to science. It's an artificial element, not even on the periodic table. He shows up. How likely is it that aliens exist and are here if he has a piece of material we can't explain at all? Pretty damn high, I guess. What is the chance that you would just have that material if aliens didn't exist? Pretty damn low. Which means I need to change my hypothesis. Oh my gosh, this evidence changes everything. I have to change my beliefs. That's how science works. But note that we don't have that strength. We have the word of a man versus the word of everybody else. Right? So this is not, chat, this does not mean aliens haven't visited Earth. It just means it shouldn't make it more likely to us. That's it. That's how science works, okay? It's not saying this or this thing is not possible. It is just looking at evidence and changing your belief. For our most powerful scientific laws, theories, for the theory of evolution, for example, everything that we observe makes it more likely that evolution is true. And we haven't found anything to decrease our probability in that belief. In my opinion, we have almost never seen anything in this UFO UAP regime to drastically increase our Bayesian probability. Now, chat, did I just spend 30 minutes explaining Bayesian inference to you and got a lot of you in here just by putting aliens in the title? I don't know, maybe. Chat, I know some of you are going a little wild in chat, but if you chill out, we can get to anything that you have to say. Maybe Kyle is the alien. Very unlikely. Like, I could tell you who my parents are. I'm here for the orcas, says Burnt Alive. Well, we have time. We have time to get to it. Literally just accidentally clicked because you had aliens in the title, says Cellrom. Haha. Thanks for the view, baby. Claiming things is cheap. Debunking things with math and logic is hard and takes time, says Matterbeam. Look, when I'm talking about Bayesian statistics, these big words and complicated ideas, it is just, I think it's useful because it gives you a general tool. Based on what is my belief, what is the strength of the evidence based on prior probabilities of those things being true or not? How do I change my mind? Have you or a friend you trust claim to see a UFO? I've never seen a UFO, I don't think, personally. Isn't it interesting that in a time where almost every single person on Earth has a camera, that sightings of UFOs have actually gone down? It's almost like people were mistaking things for other things. Where would the aliens come from? The distance between Earth and a habitable planet are enormous, says No Square. Well, given that it doesn't seem like faster than light travel is possible. Even something like wormholes, which are mathematically work, but we have no evidence because they require exotic matter, i.e. matter that doesn't exist in the universe as we know it. I think it's, based on what we know, I think it's unlikely that faster than light travel is possible, which means that aliens would have to be pretty close to us. Would you put your brain in a robot body with the strength of 5 gorillas? Says 8 My Wheaties with the $4.99. 100%. Last night I had a dream, chat, that I got a second master's degree, but I couldn't find the room to study and I failed. I was also brought on stage to play with fish, and it made me so happy, and then I woke up. Wouldn't it be more statistically correct to assume that aliens have not visited Earth, says Felix T? Well, that's not what we're trying to update in terms of our probability, right? The evidence is presented as aliens have visited, right? So we have to take that hypothesis and present evidence against that hypothesis. Kyle's already a robot with a great head of hair, says Jose Martinez, straight from the gaming channel. No robot has hair like this. Jack the Dripper. Ooh, I like that name. Is Kyle Hill body pillow when? I am writing it down right now. Speaking of, I just got a Snorlax Squishmallow like 5 minutes ago. Body pillow, question mark? I'll do it. Don't think I won't do it. Liz Calvert, as always, with the 10. My tiny human Alex says that, wait, you can use that probability to figure out how likely it is to make homemade curly fries? Also, do you know how to make homemade curly fries? Sorry, he's obsessed with curly fries. No, you don't need statistics to make curly fries. Although you could make a really, like, perfect spiral. Terminator had great hair. No, he didn't. People are saying science things, and I'm lost, says Medler. Just tell me where you're lost, buddy. I got you. I got you. Chat. At the top here, we now have memberships on the main channel. If you want emotes and badges here in the chat, and you want all the stuff you get on Patreon, behind the scenes, access to the private Discord, which I think there are like 40 channels now in there. Can there be a second time dimension, says Perry Verdugen? Well, we have no evidence to say so. Again, and I get a lot of emails like this, it's fun to speculate about physicsy things, but do you see anything about the universe that isn't better explained in a different way? So the same thing applies to the alien stuff we were talking about, and when I was talking about this on the gaming stream, the Blood Mommy gaming stream, someone said, well, you can't see dark matter. Why do scientists think that's a thing? Well, we see its influence. We can't observe dark matter yet because it doesn't seem to interact in any other way than gravity. We look at how galaxies spin, and they're spinning too fast. They need more mass for how they're spinning, and it's not explained by the number of stars we see in that galaxy. So we postulate some dark matter that interacts gravitationally, making the galaxy spin faster. Now, the reason why that isn't like aliens is because for the dark matter question, we don't actually have a better explanation. We don't have something that better explains the observations that we see. Now, if some guy, former military guy, young guy, comes and gives a 40-minute interview to a known weird website, does anything else explain what he is saying better? And as maybe dismissive as it sounds, is it more likely that, I'm going to take a stupid example, but a silly example, but is it more likely that all of the higher-ups that he was working with just were messing with him? And I know that sounds like I'm being dismissive, like I said, but think about it. Is it actually more likely that a bunch of dudes were messing with a young guy, or that aliens exist and the Pope is covering it up? See, again, we can go on the other side. If he had evidence that was almost incontrovertible, that's one thing. But if he is saying, I heard this from other people where I was working and I've never seen it myself, but they said the Pope is covering up World War II UFO crashes and we've murdered people for looking at blue alien butts, is that more likely than, say, I don't know, a person like me working in the UFO investigation part of the government and being like, hey, John, this kid, man, straight. I mean, he was a fighter pilot. He came straight out of the. Come on. Let's mess with him a little bit. Yeah. So no. Hey, come here. We're really not supposed to tell you this until you hit clearance level 5, but the Pope knows about aliens. No, John, shut up. I know. Yeah. Right before Hitler died in the bunker was actually a spaceship hull. Pope knew about it. Didn't tell any. Pope knew about it. Didn't. John, shut up. Okay, so I'm being facetious. Literally happens all the time at all levels of the military, says Hanzuku. I'm just like, I know I'm being facetious, but it's actually more likely, right? I know. I'm just saying, like, it is, and I use this silly example for ghosts too. Like, is it likely that ghosts exist and have came into your kitchen at night and moved all the silverware and stuff and stacked chairs? Is that more likely than me, literally me, flying to wherever you live, breaking into your house and doing that myself? Isn't that more likely than a metaphysical upheaval of the universe? I'd say yes. I'm a ghost. How do you explain me? Shrooms. Chat. Orcas scare the crap out of me. I'd also prefer you in my bedroom, Kyle. God, bonk. Calm down, will you? Chat, orcas scare the crap out of me. I view them as the most dangerous thing in the ocean. Not to saying that they're the most aggressive thing in the ocean. But I put orcas or killer whales top of the list. List goes like this. Orcas. Tiger sharks. Dolphins. Leopard seals. That's the list. I moved tiger shark up higher in the list because earlier this week on Reddit I saw a man literally eaten alive on camera by a shark. Really shouldn't have clicked on that. I'm not even joking either. Don't watch it. Anyway. But I still put orcas above that. Why? They're incredibly intelligent. They live for a long time. They're super fast. They're carnivores. They eat polar bears. They eat great white sharks. They eat two of the apex predators in two different environments. So orcas scare the crap out of me. You can see how coordinated they are, how intelligent they are. Case in point, orcas have been sinking boats. Why? No giant squids? No, giant squids, by the time they get to the surface, they're dying. Or it seems like they're dying whenever we see them. And they live way deep down, and they get eaten by sperm whales. So orcas scare the crap out of me. Like, if they just, you start to sound like Joe Rogan, says Universal Serial Bus. You take that back. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I sound like Joe Rogan? No, I do not. If you want me to sound like Joe Rogan, I can. Are you live right now? Says Boyga. No, I'm not. You want me to sound like Joe Rogan for a second? Here we go. Now, my guest here today is a whistleblower. a revolutionary. A lot of people don't know about the ideas that you're going to talk about, and a lot of ideas that I think more people should know about. And so, you know, like the fact that the government does cover up stuff all the time. I mean, science is wrong all the time. I mean, look at how Galileo was persecuted. Science changes all the time. You know, one day they say chocolate causes cancer, and then they say the total opposite. So who knows what is real? Nothing is real, basically. And my guest is going to explain how real this conspiracy theory is. Now, conspiracy theories happen all the time. We know there was a conspiracy against me to get me off Spotify. And my guest today says the Pope knows about aliens and covered it up, which I think is fascinating. You know, could the leader of the biggest religion in the world, the opiate of the masses, really cover up something from a lot of people? I mean, I've been kicked in the head a lot, but I think that's probably true. Now, I'm going to uncritically let you speak for 40 minutes and we're going to talk about it. Orca scared the crap out of me. Ooh, an Australian donation, chat. You know what that means. We get to practice. Daniel Chick with the Australian $20. Here we go. I think when people hear what they want is theoretically maybe possibly the latch onto it despite minimal evidence and more evidence to refute it because they like it. Science isn't a moral question, it's about facts. Now, Daniel, I did not actually understand the grammar of what you said, but I want you to rate me from 1 to 10 on your accent. That last accent, that was more New Zealand, I know. Rate me 1 to 10. Orcas scare me. Why are they attacking boats? Well, right now, scientists, people who have been asked about this, have said that this seems to be a learned behavior. Thanks, Kyle. I can die happy now. Why? Solid 6 out of 10, 6.8. Poppycock! I'm a Tasmanian, so you get a 3 out of 10. Bull crappy. Scientists think that this is a learned behavior that passes through that has passed through populations because of some initial trauma. Maybe, they speculate, a young orca got hit by a boat and then decided to hit back. And your accent is absolutely perfect. 9 out of 10. I know. And so this learned behavior started moving through populations, even to the point where they would be attacking rudders and motors first, which indicates some level of intelligence, right? They noticed that attacking those parts of the ship first disabled the ship, and they would ram the ship and stuff like that. Dulla. Nick Davis, you get a 5 out of 10 from Australian. Say Dulla with less emphasis on drown out the A. It's more like Dulla. Got it, mate. Now, this brings up, if it is a learned behavior that's spreading through a population, then it adds to other amazing examples of marine mammals doing this, from dolphins learning to get high on pufferfish to encircling their prey with bubbles and sand, to whales making like screens of bubbles to corral bait fish into one area and then gulp them all up. That's very cool. And that's kind of the whole explanation. We don't exactly know why we're doing it, but scientists think that there was probably some trauma for which an individual lashed out. But why I want to bring this up is that there is an interesting difference and interaction between innate behavior and learned behavior. Now, I think some people do get this confused, right? An innate behavior is a behavior that is hardwired by genetics. Genetically, it is in the DNA of some organism. The organism is born, it develops, and regardless of where it develops or when or by what, through what process, it will do the behavior. That's how you know it's innate. So, For example, a bird will sing regardless. Or going with birds again, if a droplet of water hits a bird's beak, it will move. If you put your hand on the stove, you will retract it. That doesn't even require your brain, just motor neurons. Okay, so that's an innate behavior. A learned behavior is different in that it is not carried by the genetics, and it will not be passed down through the genetics. So a bird can have an innate behavior to sing, but what it sings and how it sings, frequency, tone, pattern, that is learned through interactions with its environment, right? Now, the distinction here is that while learned behaviors don't come from genetics, they can be influenced by genetics, right? You could have genetics that predispose you to be better at learning, right? Better at recognizing different birdsong in the environment such that you can replicate it. So there is no hard cutoff between innate behaviors and learned behaviors. Well, in some are one or the other, but it's less of a binary and more like a spectrum, like everything, where genetics basically affects everything. But some things don't come from genetics, right? So what these orcas are doing is a learned behavior that could be dependent on innate behavior to be inquisitive, playful, emotional. F. Vanth, I appreciate it. And if some of these innate behaviors do predispose them to have these kinds of interactions, then on top of that and with that, learned behaviors could be passed from generation to generation, given that previous populations interact with future populations. And we know that orcas do this because female orcas get menopause. Even when they are done reproducing, they still live long enough to be around and interact with new generations, possibly teaching them, possibly help parenting, which I think is awesome. Did you read that vipers are now theorized to have evolved the ability to spit venom as a defense specifically against humans, says Rancor with the 5. I highly doubt that. I'd have to read it, but when we're talking about evolution, the amount of time that it takes to evolve a behavior, it can happen quickly, but on an evolutionary scale quickly. So humans have only been around in areas interacting with vipers consistently for what? Less than 100,000 years? All over the world, maybe? And vipers have been around and have, I don't know this for sure, but have been probably spitting venom for millions of years. So that makes it less likely to me that it's an evolution in response to a pressure, and that pressure is humans. I think what spitting is probably a response to is things with eyes. And since we know cobras, vipers can spit so well into things' eyes, and when they do that, it increases their chances of passing along their genetics because they're not getting eaten by a thing. That becomes a selective pressure to get good at spitting stuff into eyes. So I'd say it's a selective pressure in response to predators that have eyes. And probably not just people, because other predators exist with forward-facing eyes. The reason why you have forward-facing eyes is depth perception and accuracy. When you're you can see predator hunting animals. Most of them, I don't know if that's true, a lot of them are defined by forward-facing eyes. In difference to, contrasted with, sideways eyes on the side like deer have, which give you a much greater view of your environment, but worse depth perception and reaction and all that stuff. So no, I have not seen the Viper study or claim, but I would have to see good evidence to make me change my prior beliefs, chat. Bringing it back, Daniel Sheik with another Australian $10. Here we go. Animal language, take that, didn't it? Oh, that was too loud. That was too high. Animal language, take that, didn't it? Are you talking about Daniel Dennett, the philosopher? Talking about animal language. Animal language is a very complicated topic because, you know, there's been examples of, you know, Coco the gorilla learning sign language, but does it actually understand sign language? If animals are talking to each other like birds, a bird song, is that the same thing as linguistic language like us humans would think about it? Hard to say, but what it isn't hard to say is that my Australian accent is great. Chat, do you know the difference between innate and learned behaviors now? Orcas aren't predisposed by their genetics to sink boats, but that behavior could rapidly spread through a population. It could get passed down to a population. It could die out with a single population. This could have been a single individual in a pod, and it won't spread beyond the pod. I think you know now. And that's good. That's what I want here. What about using AI to decode human language, decode animal language? You're presupposing animal language, which you can't do. I love your explainers, but frankly, I have to turn off the live chat. It's a bit much, says Marlon May. To each their own, Marlon. I like talking. Period. That's not true. I don't. If you had an innate Australian accent, it would be better. That's true. How can we find the influence of exotic matter, says Perry? Right now, it's postulated. It's a way to make things like wormholes work. We have no evidence that it exists anywhere. You know? Bluestone Creeper, thanks for being here. AI doesn't exist. That's not true. So, speaking of AI, chat, like I said at the beginning of El Streamo, the next episode at the facility, is going to be a deep dive into exactly how ChatGPT works, from a high-level description and what large language models or LLMs do, down to the actual architecture of ChatGPT. And in celebration of my Kevin's finishing the upgrades here at the facility, in that video, you'll also see our brand new facility rooms, drones. Arya she's looking hot. And you'll see that in the next video. How close to AGR do you think we are? I don't have the expertise to say. Off topic, but I really miss your Half-Life history stories. Have you anything in the works? My brother in Christ, I publish like one a month. But yes, I am currently in the process of writing one, and the next video after ChatGPT is another one. Our first story from Japan, it's going to be a Half-Life history about Hiroshima. I can't produce them all the time, although statistically I should, because they do the best and make the most money. Thanks for being here, Foxy. But I have other interests, you know. Still looking on the paper about vipers, but various articles are suggesting it was an adaptation to primates and not humans, says Benolio. See, that gets closer to making more sense, right? Primates have been around for a much, much longer time than humans as a species. Homo sapiens have been around. And so that as an evolved response to, say, proto-primates, proto-apes feeding on reptiles, which we know that they do, then that makes more sense to me, right? DNA memory. Bro thinks Assassin's Creed is real, says Mark Cochran. I said nothing about memory. In innate behavior, you don't have a memory of an innate behavior. Your DNA just codes for things. But DNA is a kind of memory of the environmental pressures that came before you, what genes were turned on and off, what was selected for, what hasn't been selected for. I mean, we can look back into our DNA and find when viruses infected a big population of us and inserted some of their DNA into our own at a certain point in time in our evolution. So in that way, it's the DNA can kind of be like a record of our evolution. What's it called? Recapitulation of phylogeny. So it can be kind of like a record, but it's not memory. Assassin's Creed should have just made it in the time period and just ditched all that other stuff. Nobody likes to play those sections. Montreal. How long are you going to stream, friend? We're almost done. Although, you know, it's our first office hours in a long time. Maybe I should just talk to you. I really, really enjoyed Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It was great. Did I miss a chat about UFOs in Wales? Says Ron Johnson. Yes. Chat, so in addition to the next video being one of our longer videos about ChatGPT, because I think you will find it useful and educational, as will the masses, we are also now doing more of our gaming streams. So if you like gaming, and you probably do because you're nerds, and science while gaming, go to the gaming channel. It's called Kyle Hill Gaming. Same thing, you can become a member there. We've been doing Diablo 4, a hardcore character that has not died yet, or else it gets deleted. I'm having fun over there. We're going to be doing more. What would Jacques Cousteau think of those orcas? Love your show, says Rosalie Everts. I don't know. So many science times in Diablo. Yeah, you wouldn't expect it. Have you played Subnautica? I have. Such a fun stream. Can't wait to see you play with Plutonia. ChatGPT isn't even a thing having a hallucination. It's a hallucination machine. Okay, chat, I'm going to end the stream with this. So I just learned, I learned this the other day. And, I kind of knew that this was the state of thinking in neuroscience, but I had a neuroscientist put it to me very bluntly. So when Archer says ChatGPT isn't a thing having an hallucination, it's just a hallucination machine. Okay, I want to blow your mind with something. The current thinking in modern neuroscience is no longer a bottom-up way of processing the world. By which I mean, we have an innate feeling that how you interact with the world and your brain interacts with the world is, say, let's take vision. You see something, you open your eyes, photons hit the back of your eyes, they get transduced into chemical electrical signals, they go into your brain processes it, and then tells you what you're seeing. That's what most people, and that's what neuroscience for like the last 20 years has assumed it's assumed what your brain is doing. Observing the world with various stimuli, hearing, smell, sight, touch. It's going upwards into layers of processing in the brain, and then your brain is telling you what you are interacting with, right? But as Archer said about hallucinations, the current thinking is that model is upside down. By which I mean, the current model of neuroscience of how the brain works and how you experience the world is not bottom up, it is top down. By which I mean, you are experiencing a predictive, generative hallucination that your brain is creating about reality, and the inputs, like vision, are being used to calibrate that model. Sound familiar? Kind of like Bayesian inference, right? And that's what we think is happening, Bayesian inference. So it's not that you are looking at the world and then responding to it. You have a model of the world, a hallucination of reality, and your brain is using reality to change that hallucination, to bring it closer to what is useful. What is the evidence for that? Says Nicholas S. Well, again, I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not an expert, but there are a lot of the ways that the brain is structured implies that this is what it's doing. For example, there are 10 times as many feedback neurons in your brain as there are feed-forward neurons. So in the ways that I'm pointing here, you can imagine this previous model of how the brain worked. I get information, it goes up through layers of processing in my brain, in my cortex, visual cortex, for example, and then my brain tells me what's going on. But there's actually 10 times more neurons than that feed back into the sensory apparatus. Now, why would the brain have those kind of structures and those kinds of layers if it was just taking reality and visualizing it? So there's more evidence than that, but that's one of the lines of evidence. And so it is not unreasonable at this point in neuroscience to say that you are living in a controlled hallucination. You are basically living a controlled dream, a dream that reality tests. Think about that for a second. We are brains in vats. You have never actually interfaced with reality directly. Instead, what we think your brain is doing is hallucinating a model of the world that is useful to move around the world, using inputs to change the model as you go along. Think about that for a second. Here's an easy little example to prove that you don't interface with reality and it's constructed. What if I touch my finger to my nose? Go ahead. We feel that when you touch your finger to your nose, we feel it's simultaneous, right? But how can it be? Your brain's here. It's not magical, it's connected by neurons. Isn't that phenomenology? Yes. Your brain is connected by neurons to different parts of your body. And they have to travel a certain distance, the electrochemical signals, right? When I touch my finger to my nose, it is a fact that the information from my nose will get to my brain before the information from my finger, which has to travel all the way down my arm, up my arm, to the brain. This cannot be simultaneous. It physically cannot be. The feeling. And yet you feel it as simultaneous. Why? Your brain is making it simultaneous. It is beneficial to buffer reality in this way. It'd be very weird, it'd be hard for us to move about the world if we didn't feel what we were doing was simultaneous with how we do it. Wouldn't it just be an imperceptible difference in timing? You say that, but it's not. So you're saying it fills in your brain just fills in the blanks? Exactly. But fills in the blanks of what? When you move your eyes in not a saccade, or it doesn't matter, when you move your eyes, we know that visual stimulus is not continuous. We know there has to be times that you are not getting enough stimulus, that it could be black. if I rapidly change my eyes from here to there, it is not a continuous image. It can't be. So what is your brain doing? It's filling in the gaps. What your brain is doing about that, but your brain does that for everything. When you experience the world, you are experiencing a predictive, generative model that works well enough to get you through your life. And your brain takes reality and uses that to fill in the gaps of this model such that you can continue to live.